Thank you so much. I think that one of the most important things when not only creating this cooperation and these collaborations across multidisciplinary teams is also being able to provide the right funding for it. So this is why we're here. And so I wanted to start picking your brain on we had a session on incentive mechanisms earlier, which Jonathan participated on, and
James participated. I was. Never mind.
sorry,
It was.
you guys were on the panel, right? Yeah. And so I wanted to perhaps start from there. You feature Filecoin as one of those examples, so maybe we can start there. On decentralized storage systems, perhaps, for scientific data. From the example of Filecoin, I wanted to start from there. If you had something to say about decentralized storage systems where they can be incentivized.
Yeah, I mean they're critical. It's so like Filecoin's built on top of IPFS. Everyone know IPFS? Yes, Filecoin. Okay, so Filecoin's built on IPFS just to incentivize people to use it. That is an example of funding research. It just so happens that I think their focus is largely on scientific data. It could be on any data, but they're generating a currency to store scientific data. We need more of that. We need to generate currency to get more compute. We need to generate currency to get more lab time. We need to generate currency, and it's not only generating currency. I sound like the central bank right now, but we need to. I think generative economics is a really powerful tool that we as a community don't necessarily tap into quite yet.
Yeah, it's great. So,
Can I add something?
yeah, absolutely. Do you guys want to add, please?
Yes, something that also is very important for scientific projects in DeSci. DeSci is having a little bit of friction in the growth, because a lot of scientists at the very beginning, they say, DeSci, oh, come on. So referrals, incentive through referrals. You collect data, you ask people to do things. Ask also to refer about your project and get rewarded for that. So I get a reward if I do what I'm supposed to do in generating this data. And I am rewarded also when I bring other people. So those are the mechanisms that seems to be working because they use the network effect.
Let's keep going. So one of the benefits of this is everyone has storage to provide. Everyone has compute to provide. It brings more people into the scientific process. So it's not just asking your scientific colleague to contribute. You can ask your neighbor, you can ask your mom, your grandma to give your hard drive. Like, come on, grandma, how many pictures of me do you need? Just like you get a terabyte hard drive, 100 gigs of me, that's all you need, and the rest of it goes to research. And then get paid for that. And then have her get her Baccarat club to also join, or backgammon, whichever.
The reason I brought Filecoin in this question is because through the work of Ara Science and the educational sessions that are coming online very soon, we have a session especially on IPFS and the interplanetary file system to understand and to go through what Ellie presented us earlier about how can this data research, scientific data management and research can get paid by using these decentralized storage systems. So we're going to have more information about that, and please follow Ara Science. My next question was, and then please get your questions ready. For Jerry, you quoted Vitalik on one of your slides, and I wanted to pick your brain on and create more awareness among us. I think it's extremely valuable. The quadratic funding formula, if you are familiar with it or not, but I think it's important. So I wanted to know is there any use of quadratic funding formula that has been utilized on Solana, perhaps? And by the way, that was a fantastic POMDAT science, because I think POMDAT the pond that I forgot now, the
Pump fund.
right,
is
it's very
the-
famous, right? We all know that. But when it comes to science, I think that's extraordinary that it's based on Solana and what you guys are doing. But in terms of amplifying the funding and the use of the quadratic funding, I don't know if there is anything on there. The quadratic funding formula was published by Vitalik, and I was wondering if something like that is within the plans of Solana Labs, or if this could be the strike to start something like this with this group of researchers that we are here.
Yeah, there fortunately no project funding efforts that I know of. Whether or not it is on the roadmap for Solana Labs, certainly I think it is being discussed. But fortunately, I don't work too close to the protocol level to have much insight into that.
Would you like to add something?
And then everybody raise their hand if you want, and I will walk it around. But my first question, I wanted to kind of weave the thing that you're doing at Circular with this kind of validation with some of the funding conversations that I'm interested in. Is like, one of the challenges or question marks that often comes up for researchers is like, all right, well, what are you actually funding? And I think you were mentioning this as well. You're like, oh, like we don't even know. You're talking about how like data validation was bad, or maybe we were tweaking our data. And so I think my first question was to you, ask Gianluca about where in the process are you validating the data? Because I know there's been some people who are like, oh yeah, we publish it to the blockchain, but there's a time between when it comes off the data machine into when it's published to know how is it validated. And then from there, like, how are either of you, John and Jerry, thinking about funding research, and how you're thinking about validating the data or the research that you're funding? Take that one.
Okay, so making the data auditable, it's indispensable. As we move forward, we depend on data more and more. So the ideal is at the source, where the data is created, when the data is created. That is better because if you do that at the beginning, that certification, so that you have auditable data at the source, so the entire supply chain benefit from that. But the single scientist that is running a project is subject to data that might not be auditable and might be biased. So how can the single scientist protect its research? Can certify the data that has been received, so as a proof that this is the data I received, and then the data at the outcome. So you guarantee what is your input and what is your output for repeatability studies. A lot of papers, they don't pass the the repeatability test. And for funding mechanisms, I think this should be one of the first things you want to evaluate for scientific projects. If you see that they have an interest for the certification and validation, because if they are about science, they will have to deal with the regulators at some point. That is a very good index to understand if it is something serious or just magic, some testing.
Sorry, what was the question? How is the funding being used more tangibly?
I think it was like what Gianluca was saying, like, yeah, how as a funder are you thinking about, or like as people who are distributedly funding work, like how are we thinking about like validated data?
Like you fund, you create all these tokens for these projects. Do you care about what is being produced, if it is legit or not?
Yeah. I would say like I care. I'm Jerry, N of one. I would say Solana is a permissionless market, so people can do whatever they want on there, and which is why Meme Core Mania happened. And the thing, just seeing whether it's the BioDAO Launchpad or Pump.Science, I ultimately have no say in what happens with the capital and that funding. The individual participants and token holders believe in the founder, the team, or the idea, and then they contribute their capital towards that mission. And whatever outcomes end up happening, unfortunately, it is permissionless. So there's no, it's not really our place to police it. I would say, it's not necessarily Web3 products being built. There are really great products being built with the funding. Like Virginia's sitting in front of me, she's from SpineDAO. They're building really great AI triage tools to help filter different patients based on the specialists they need to see. and also working with decentralized tagging and labeling companies to be able to more efficiently see a spinal image and be able to see these are the problems you have in your spinal condition, and then find the right treatments based on that. So these are outcomes that don't really have anything to do with Web3. It's only Web3 capital that are producing these products and these solutions that anyone could really use. And then the doctors and the physicians that they end up working with will adopt these tools, and the patients themselves might not even end up knowing it's on Web3, right? So that's a really great outcome. For us, right, like that's like the best. We've identified the founders, they've been vetted, and their mission aligns with the overall DeSci mission. Not every project on DeSci, Solana, or DeSci in general is going to be like that. It may end up this token that you've invested in crashes 90%, right? And then that's just the state of things because it was a capital market and you've bought into it. That would be my answer. Second, to your data validation point, I do want to shout out this one other project. It's called Yes, No Error. They started on Solana, have migrated elsewhere, but I still think it's a really cool mission. Basically, they fact check the reputability of different studies based on like sample size and like the sources. And it's a really great, like easy tool to know, like with confidence, can you believe the thing that you're being told right now on social media?
So I really like data validation. I think that should be what's funded, but I also appreciate the permissionless aspect. I would also bring into this that we don't even need Web3 to do any of this. Like the endowment, the whole reason I bring up the endowment is we introduced an entirely new funding stream to open source without any blockchains. We can do that with science as well. We can fund research without Web3. At the same time, generate some currency and give it to Web3. But, so there was a stat up there on one of the slides, I forget which one, that said the research replicated, but when it replicates, like a good amount of research does replicate, but when it does replicate, if it's a positive replication, the effects that are replicated are significantly less pronounced than what was claimed in the research. It's something like 80%. So something happened in the research, it's positive, they're accurate saying it's positive, but no one attested to it. So machine verification or validation, fantastic. Also human attestation. We should fund replications. We should fund reproductions so that if we can get it out of the machine, great. If we can't, some 24 humans said, oh yeah, they said taking 1 pill a day cures it, or they said taking 1 pill a day cures it. It really would take 200 pills a day or something like that. That can be done without Web3, yeah. It shouldn't.
So funding research in Web3 is extremely important, and I'll explain you why. Until today, a lot of researchers struggle with raising funds, and they end up or working on stuff that is not the stuff that they love to do, because that's the only funding available, or they have to marry the agenda of someone else and conduct the research with the objectives of someone else. If I have to get funded and I can offer the transparency to see where the money is coming from so that there is no conflict of interest, I think this is a huge change. Of course, there is crowdfunding, but transparent crowdfunding, it's unbeatable.
Thank you, Gianluca. And I would like to also double click on that because I have been privileged to get funding hundreds of thousands of dollars from the biggest 20 to 25 protocols out there that we know, from Bitcoin to Ethereum to Algorand and many, many others. But creating a layer one the way you're doing it is extraordinary. So I wanted to double click on that, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to tell us what is your call to action for all of us here. Maybe this is the layer one that we're all like looking for to onboard all our projects or create our new DAOs. So what do you think is your biggest pain that we can help you? I know we have Solana here as well, but I think that talking to a protocol founder is extraordinary. So is there any call to action that you have for us here, researchers, to onboard and something that you want to focus on a little bit more?
I need people to be brave. I need researchers, scientists to be brave. The choice to use a protocol like ours means that you cannot cheat anymore. You cannot lie. You cannot bias your data to make your final outcome on the paper work. So if you can take it, we had to make some very big sacrifice because we built a tokenomics that was purposely designed to be not interesting for pump and dumps. That, which means cutting funding. So funding is definitely one of the pain points of playing the ethical way. But after almost 2 decades in research, I said, can I build something that just like Bitcoin represents a paradigm shift? The first people that invested in Bitcoin, they did not invest for a pump and dump. They did not invest for an upside. They invested for a change, for a paradigm shift. They wanted a decentralized currency. I want to make data truthful, meaningful, transparent. That's the paradigm shift I'm trying to accomplish.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd say I definitely agree with Gianluca's expression that with Web3, you enable this long tail of citizen scientists that wouldn't necessarily be working on the most profitable, the most monetizable thing that they could be on, but it's a particular passion, and there's community around that can form as well. Whereas if you were in the Web2 paradigm, right, the studies you will be working on is probably the 20th drug for diabetes or some other research effort that, though has a really large market, isn't true disruptiveness or is deemed too high risk for the potential of not passing clinical trials. So definitely the Web3 part of it is super important. I would say the other really important piece is the capital markets side of it, the liquidity piece, right? So when you want to raise in Web3, you want to bootstrap financing in such a way that there is capital that can flow into your project. And I'll be the first one to say that the science capital on Solana is small compared to what's out there in DeFi and in DePIN and even in meme coins. But it's a start, and I think in terms of choosing where to build or where to raise, right? You do want to look for where there is capital that you could raise from.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I'm so happy that I'm sitting here and listen. I just come into when Jerry do the presentation, and the reason I come to listen is also because I'm more from the biological side. I'm going to host a conference called AI and Drug Discovery Conference, and this couple of days I'm actually thinking to try to plant a seed of using blockchain, tokenization as a funding mechanism for a lot of research project, which some have IP and stuff like that. And when I hear you are talking about all this, using this mechanism as funding, you mentioned about a couple projects that actually funding this way, and also some of the chemical compounds. So it's kind of wonderful to hear that. So number of questions that I have, which later on I can also have some more discussion with you. So when you're talking about those 3 projects, when people buy into this kind of project, what kind of future claim they have? Could you explain how do you evaluate what kind of project would be likely a good candidate? And once people want to buy into that, what kind of claim in the future that could have? And second question regarding those compounds that you are talking about, are you talking about when the people auction buying those, they're buying the formula to produce that compound, or so those are kind of questions that immediately come to my mind. I'd love to.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to hop in the first one. If you want, Virginia, you can also pass the mic down. She's actually SpineDAO's one of the core contributors to SpineDAO. But the first question, what do token holders get? Why would I want to buy this token in the first place? It's whatever the project deems as the utility for that token. That might mean early access to certain products, or it might be early access to trial data. In some cases, if you buy IP tokens, it can even mean you get certain rights or revenue share when you ultimately sell the drug IP. to Pfizer or whatever biopharma down the line, right? So there is many different scenarios for which upside you can get by holding a token, up to the project founder. I will also say, like, like speculation is one other piece of it too, right? Just as you would buy stocks in Apple or Google or Tesla, part of the reason you're buying is because you believe in the founder, you believe in the mission, the project, and you think it's going to be worth more 6 months from now than it will be today, right? So there's a utility aspect of it for sure, and there's also the speculation side of it as well. And then both of these combine into why people end up buying and holding the token.
A little bit of respectful water on IP NFTs. They've never been challenged in court yet, and no one has ever gotten hurt from a DAO yet. So what happens if I've invested in a DAO that's producing IP NFT, I'm a primary holder of that, and someone goes and takes a drug from this organization and then they get seriously injured? No one knows. When someone has a claim to that IP through an IP NFT, does that hold up legally? Like, I think a lot of us believe, yes, that should, but the law and what we believe are two different things. So I think this is actually calling way back to something Winnie brought up earlier today. We need to start exploring policy more in this space, in DeSci, from the ground up. Not like how do we change policy that currently exists, but what are the policies, what's the policy infrastructure we would like to see in this paradigm shift? Because I very much agree with you on the Bitcoin perspective and why people got into it, and I think that's why people are getting into DeSci at this point, hopefully.
What they are doing with many other blockchain, the token aspect of the DeSci is very important because it's the gamification of the funding mechanism, and that's if you think is a very great thing. The only thing is that, in my opinion, it should be it's needed a little bit of protection for the investors. So I understand that it's permissionless, which means I can go there, write whatever I want to say. I leave to the individual. And as a blockchain, I totally agree with you. But as a platform, as a launchpad that creates that, I will probably put some guardrails in place because you need to protect also people that cannot really pick.
I think you're spot on, and I agree. Like, it's not the role of the blockchain, though it is the role of the application and Launchpad to put these guardrails in. And so, like, for example, Bio Protocol has like 3 funding mechanism tiers, right, to make sure that people are protected as this project gains more capital. There's also like lockups or fair launches to make sure, like, if you buy the token, you can't just dump 90% on other traders too, right? So we're seeing more involvement into how do you protect these individual users from the app and Launchpad side, not necessarily from the protocol side, though.
No, the Launchpad.
Correct. Yeah, agree.
I think this will be the last question.
Just to be super clear, I think the IP NFTs it's a very important experiment as well. I think this is interesting to watch develop.
So I'm a biologist, and so I am interested in moving things from target to compound. And you talked a lot about compounds, but frankly, in this day and age, compounds, the sort of like obsession with, I just got to find this one molecule is kind of last century. In this day and age, you can generate compounds, thousands of them very rapidly if you know what you're trying to target. And really what matters is the target and the validation tools and the IND. You talked a little bit about how you haven't done like regulation. Is there anything, and I apologize if this has been discussed earlier because I came towards the end, is there anything that has been done looking at targets and funding identification of new targets? Because right now, as I understand it, that primarily happens either as a trade secret in a larger company or sometimes in startups if they have a pipeline. And also in academia as something that's funded by government organizations. And if you really want to do something that's like beyond the pale, you would seek out truly novel ways of identifying targets because really the compounds can be generated, and then if you can generate validation data from that.
Nothing that I know of.
I don't know the specific deficiency that this is targeting, but one of the projects on Solana Curetopia did unveil a new finding that was more target focused. Happy to chat afterwards once I look it up and see what it's called.
So the way they are working right now is, okay, I want to create this compound and I want them to validate if it's having the expected effects, which might or might not work. But essentially they are securing at the same time the ownership of that compound formula. And because, like you said, you can have millions of those, that's the game. That's pretty much the way it is. I'm not part of that project, but what I can tell you that I would also argue about the possible IP already existing that is not verified. And I think that might be another pretty serious concern in my opinion.
All right, well, I guess we are at the end of the session and the day. So one more time, I want to appreciate Art Science and all the organizers, Ellie and everybody else, Eva is around there, for getting us all together. And please, let's give them our last round of applause to our last speakers. Thank you so much.
Just one more huge shout out. There's a banner outside to the sponsors of the DeSci Boston event, of which Bio is top tier sponsor, huge supporter of the movement. Go out there, look at them. If you run into anyone from those organizations, say thank you in person. They appreciate it, and they also, we need support to keep DeSci growing and moving forward. So, thanks.